Hi YouTube, how are you? You okay? You doing well? Doing good? I'm glad. Me? I'm alright. Neither high nor low. Anyway, this is going to be a video response to the Cinephiles. If you don't know what the Cinephiles is, where have you been? It's my favourite movie review show. They've recently switched YouTube channels to This Is Infamous, but I will leave a link down below to the video that this is a response of, if that makes sense. The topic this time round was gateway films. So that's movies that really started your love of watching films, whether it was going to the cinema or sitting down watching a movie with your family or your friends, whatever it was. The films that really made you realise that you wanted to be a film fan or a fan of film, not just someone who casually watches movies, but someone who's really, really interested in them, maybe even interested in the process of making them, and all the sort of behind the scenes tidbits that you get in DVDs and Blu-rays these days, all that good stuff. So whatever it is, the films that made you fall in love with film in general. So I thought it would be fun to talk a little bit about, if I can get these words out, I thought it would be fun to talk a little bit about the movies that had that effect on me, the films that created this lifelong passion for watching movies that I've had since I was a kid. And I would really, really like to hear what you Ragtag Bunch think of that as well. What sort of films got you into watching films? Because I'm assuming that if you're subscribed to this channel, you're probably a film fan, unless you just like this ugly face, which I very much doubt. So anyway, going back, cast your mind back. I was born in 1980, giving my age away there, and so I grew up in the 1980s, and that was a time that was really overshadowed or dominated by Spielberg and this reaction to sort of 1970s grimmer movies. In the 1980s, you had a lot of sentimentality. You also had a lot of looking back. A lot of the popular films at that time were movies that explored issues that kids would have growing up, and the relationships and the angst of being a teenager as well. So we had like a lot of Spielberg's movies, and also John Hughes as well. And a lot of the films that I really loved were films of that ilk, because I was growing up and these were films that were exploring what it was like to be growing up in the 1980s as well, you know. So I think that just that, being a kid, being the same age as kids that were in films like The Goonies, for example, which is a Richard Donner film, but it was directed by Spielberg. All the way around. It was written by Spielberg, it was directed by Richard Donner. Being a similar age to those kids, I think just connected you to the movies at that time, because that was such a big thing. I sometimes think it's a real shame. I don't think you really get films like that now, or you very, very rarely do, where films are genuinely capture the spirit of being that age. But anyway, that's a topic for another video. We're talking about gateway films here. So that was the sort of environment that I grew up in with movies. And talking of Spielberg, like one of the biggest franchises, obviously, that there's ever been, and one of the biggest series of films that Spielberg's been involved in, or only series that Spielberg's been involved in, was the Indiana Jones movies. And going back to Raiders of the Lost Ark, what I first fell in love with about movies, bizarrely, I don't know if it's that bizarre, but it's interesting to me when I think about it, it was the stunt work. It was all about, you know, for me when I was a kid, I got interested in films because of the stunts. I was like amazed by them, which was quite interesting, because I was the adventurous kid in terms of, like, I would be like that to my friends, let's go over there and climb up that hill and go, you know, that's kind of the way I was. But I wasn't a daredevil, you know, like my other friends were. So I kind of lived vicariously through them. You know, I would be the one that would be like, let's go and see what that big tree looks like up in that hill. We'd climb up to it, and then my other friends would be like, yeah, let's climb to the top of it and then jump to another tree, and and I would be like, okay, you guys do that. I'll watch. But I think likewise, I lived sort of vicariously through these incredible stunts that were being performed on film, and that was what was great about that time as well, and all the times leading up to then. Excuse me, was because when you watch something, when you watched a stunt, it was real. It wasn't CG. It was real, and you knew it was real to at least a degree. So you knew there was jeopardy, and you knew there was danger involved, and that led a real element of risk and tension to what you were watching. Especially when you would read later on that some of these stunt people got really badly injured in the stunts they were doing. But anyway, so I was like so interested in stunt work and watching the Indiana Jones movies especially, but that first film, Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is just still to this day an incredible adventure movie. It really is. It's phenomenal. Um, but the whole scene with the trucks, and with the truck rather, with the ark, and all the Nazis are on board on this truck, and Indiana Jones is on this truck and climbing around it, and knocking each of them off, and they're all falling by the side of the truck, and then when he's got his whip and he's sliding underneath the truck as it's speeding along and stuff like that. That all really, really amazed me, and it kind of blew my mind, that people were doing these sorts of stunts, and I couldn't figure out how they were doing them as well. And I think that kind of that kind of sparked that part in me that's just really curious with these things, like how would you sort of do something like that. But I think I have a very early memory of this. I think the reason that scene in particular really stuck with me in terms of stunt work and things like that was because there was an old film I used to watch. I grew up really like watching a lot of movies from like the 40s and 50s and things like that. In fact, the 30s as well, even earlier. Like that was the sort of film education that I had. My mum and dad watched those sorts of films, so I watched them with them, and they were shown all the time on TV over here in the United Kingdom. It was great. They don't really seem to show films now on television, which is a bit weird. But you used to always get those sorts of movies, and I always remember watching a film called Stagecoach, and I think it was when I was really, really young, and my dad talked about the stunt work on that, and there's a really, really famous stunt in that, which is very similar to the stunt on in Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark, where he's going underneath the truck. This happens in Stagecoach as well, and the guy that did that, what's his name? Yakimir Knut, something like that. I really apologise if I've got his name wrong. It's an incredible stunt. It really is. It's an amazing stunt, and this in Stagecoach, the guy actually like, it's a stagecoach with horses, and he just looks like he's getting trampled to death as he's falling underneath it as it's speeding along. Really, really incredible. But that's what they were used to then. All through the silent era, people like Buster Keaton, Harold Lloyd, and all that, they did their own stunts, and even ones that were really quite dangerous. But anyway, you're probably wondering, am I really talking about gateway films? I am, because what I'm saying is that the movies that had stunt work in them were the films that ignited my imagination first in a lot of ways. Those were the movies that I started falling in love with the idea of someone made this. Someone made this, or a group of people made this. And that was something that really blew my mind. And when I think about it, there were a lot of films at the time, especially like a lot of ones. Excuse me, my leg falls asleep. That was the chair. I'm going to cut this out. And I really need to get a chair that's not so squeaky. It's getting ridiculous now. I've had this chair for about 4 or 5 years, and it makes all sorts of weird noises. So where was I? Can you remember where I was? Because I can't. Yeah, there were a lot of films like Smoking the Bandit, for example, right? Films that had car chases. those were the movies with stunt work. You know, I was amazed by physical stunt work that I would see in movies, but I was also like, you know, by like people, but I was amazed by the drivers as well. I've said that like drivers aren't people, but the stunt work that you would see in Smokey and the Bandit, in movies like that with these amazing car chases, just made me fascinated by what was going on, and the sort of movie making process and all that, and how they did these things. And the Blues Brothers as well, you know, that car chase, which is to this day my favourite car chase of all time, hands down. People always talk about like Bullet and French Connection and stuff like that. Fantastic movies, fantastic car chase sequences, but the Blues Brothers, even though it's a total over the top cartoony car chase, I don't think there's any other car chase quite like it, and it's just to this day still my favourite when I watch it. And John Candy's one line during that, "We're in a truck," really, really amazing. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that well, but anyway, so it was the stunts in films that got me into loving movies, and that started this questioning when I was watching films, like how did they do that, you know? But what I would say is that I wasn't doing that like on a first viewing. First viewing, I was always right into a film. You know, I was always like just captivated by it, and I still am to this day. If it's a good story, I'm not thinking that I'm watching a movie. I'm in the story. I'm just there with it. I'm not sitting going, "How did they do that? How did that?" You know, I'm in it, and that's the way I was then. It would be afterwards that I would go, you know, "How did they do that?" So those were the movies that really got me into being a film fan. Okay, I didn't use the phrase "I'm a film fan" probably till I was about 13, but that is what I was then. I just had a voracious appetite for movies, maybe living a bit too vicariously through them. But you know, I love things that celebrate imagination, and that's what films were for me growing up. What's interesting is that love for sort of stunt work and things like that then moved into John Carpenter movies, like, you know, The Thing, and wondering how they put all that wonderful animatronic and special effects together. American Werewolf in London, how they did the effects in that, the transformation scenes. And what's interesting to me is that I've always been interested, I need to stop using the word interested, I've always been focused on the story, at least that's what I thought of a film, that's what was most important to me, that's what I would get involved in. But doing this video has made me realise that one of the things that got me into loving movies and seeing myself as a fan of film from a very, very young age, it was actually the nuts and bolts stuff. It was the stuff, the trickery, the illusions, you know, the stunt work, the special effects, these sorts of things. It was those type of movies that really got me interested in film. And on special effects, I know I've mentioned the CG thing, but again, because a lot of the special effects were in camera, they were real things that were actually there. It was interesting to see how people put that together. It just added such a greater depth, greater level of depth, and greater level of charm to the movies, as far as I can see. Even if the special effects were a bit hokey at times. So anyway, that's the films that sort of got me into loving movies and seeing myself as a bit of a film fan. The movies that were a bit of a revelation for me was from a very, very young age, like 4, 5, 6. For you, it might have been much older, I don't know. But what are the movies that made you fall in love with film? What are the films that made you consider yourself a real film fan, and this was something that you were going to really make a hobby or pastime or whatever it's been in your life, that you would always be watching films and always be interested in them? I'm really fascinated by what your responses are going to be, because maybe you'll mention some films that I haven't even watched, and that's one of the great things about this YouTube channel, is that I've watched so many great films because you have all recommended them to me, and that's been wonderful. So go and check out the Cinephiles down below, watch their video. It's a great film discussion, and definitely check out the rest of their back catalogue of videos, and subscribe to the This Is Infamous YouTube channel as well. and check out Facebook page, all that good stuff down there. And one last thing, I'm thinking of maybe doing a Woody Allen series. I'm watching a lot of Woody Allen recently. I don't know. What do you think about that? And I will be doing an announcement about the 31 Horrors of Mike, which is something that I've done the last couple of years throughout October. I'm not sure I'm going to do it yet, but I'm going to make a video about that in the next few days. I don't know if you can hear it, my voice is going, so I'm going to go. Let me know what you thought about the video and your own recollections of the movies that made you love film, and I'll be back sooner rather than later. Bye for now. Films that made you fall in love with film in general. So I thought it would be fun to talk a little bit about, if I can get these words out, I thought it would be fun to talk a little bit about the movies that had that effect on me, the films that created this lifelong passion for watching movies that I've had since I was a kid. And I would really like to hear what you Ragtag Bunch think of that as well. What sort of films got you into watching films? Because I'm assuming that if you're subscribed to this channel, you're probably a film fan, unless you just like this ugly face. Hi YouTube, how are you? You okay? You doing well? Doing good? I'm glad. Me? I'm alright. Neither high nor low. Anyway, this is going to be a video response to the Cinephiles. If you don't know what the Cinephiles is, where have you been? It's my favourite movie review show. They've recently switched YouTube channels to This Is Infamous, but I will leave a link down below to the video that this is a response of, if that makes sense. The topic this time round was gateway films. So that's movies that explored issues that kids would have growing up, and the relationships and the angst of being a teenager as well. So we had like a lot of Spielberg's movies, and also John Hughes as well. And a lot of the films that I really loved were films of that ilk, because I was growing up and these were films that were exploring what it was like to be growing up in the 1980s as well, you know. So I think, which I very much doubt. So anyway, going back, cast your mind back. I was born in 1980, giving my age away there, and so I grew up in the 1980s, and that was a time that was really overshadowed or dominated by Spielberg and this reaction to sort of 1970s grimmer movies. In the 1980s, you had a lot of sentimentality. You also had a lot of looking back. A lot of the popular films at that time were movies that really started your love of watching films, whether it was going to the cinema or sitting down watching a movie with your family or your friends, whatever it was. The films that really made you realise that you wanted to be a film fan or a fan of film, not just someone who casually watches movies, but someone who's really interested in them, maybe even interested in the process of making them, and all the sort of behind the scenes tidbits that you get in DVDs and Blu-rays these days, all that good stuff. So whatever it is, the film